Welcome to Magnificat TV news program dedicated to providing news from the church. Today is Wednesday, January 31st, 2024, and these are our headlines. The Pope has said that in blessing irregular couples, what is blessed is the people who ask for it together, but not the relationship that exists between them. More than 50,000 people braved the harsh weather conditions and participated in the annual March for Life in Washington, D.C. President Biden has made abortion the centerpiece of the election campaign, in which he's seeking re-election, the Bishop of Arlington has said. An independent study has uncovered thousands of cases of sexual abuse among German Lutherans, mostly committed by pastors who are married. People who form an irregular couple are blessed, although they are blessed at the same time, but not the relationship between them, the Pope said.
Pope Francis insisted that the union is not blessed, but simply the people who have requested it together. In relation to the recent approval of the blessing of couples in situations not recognized by the Church, in this way, the Pope qualifies in a way what is affirmed in the declaration. The Pontiff reaffirmed this concept about the declaration Fiducia Supplicans during the reception to the members of the Dicastery for the Doctrine of Faith, whose president, Argentine Cardinal Victor Manuel Fernandez, was the drafter of the document and who was present at the event. The Pope said he wanted to briefly underline two things about the doctrinal document that has generated various discussions. First, he clarifies its intention to show concretely the closeness of the Lord and of the Church to all who, finding themselves in various situations, ask for help to continue, sometimes to begin a journey of faith. These blessings outside of any liturgical context and form do not require moral perfection in order to be received. The second point stressed by the Pontiff is that when a couple approaches spontaneously to ask for them, it is not the union that is blessed, but simply the persons who have asked for them together. Not the union, but the persons, naturally taking into account the context, the sensitivities, the places where they live, and most appropriate ways of doing so.
More than 50,000 people, despite the bitter cold and snow, participated in the annual March for Life in Washington, D.C.
Tens of thousands of people marched last Friday in Washington in the traditional and annual March for Life. Snow and freezing temperatures prevented a notable tumult like other years for an event that has become a classic in U.S. political and social life. Right to Life advocates gathered on the National Mall and marched along a 2.5-mile route to an endpoint between the Capitol and the U.S. Supreme Court. This event celebrated the 2022 overturning of Roe v. Wade. Among the participants who spoke during the march, either in person or through messages of endorsement to the media, were figures such as Bishop Joseph Strickland, Michigan soccer coach Jim Harbaugh, and Republican presidential candidate Ron DeSantis, who is no longer a candidate, and Nikki Haley, among others. Speakers addressed both political and cultural aspects of the fight for life, highlighting issues such as the role of pregnancy, resource centers, and the importance of adoption. The overwhelming majority of Americans, according to the poll, favor increased state support for pregnancy resource centers. At this year's event, there was uncertainty about whether the end of Roe, which has been the main focus of the march throughout much of its history, and cold winter, weather conditions would deter attendees. As reported by Fox News, organizers of the March for Life expected 50,000 people to participate in the rally and 100,000 in the march, according to a permit issued by the National Park Service. However, turnout appeared to be lower than in previous years due to adverse weather.
Bishop Burbridge of Arlington has asserted that President Biden has made abortion the centerpiece of his campaign trail in this quest for re-election.
Bishop Michael Burbridge of Arlington condemned Joe Biden's pro-abortion speech at a rally in Virginia Tuesday night. The prelate said that Biden has made abortion the centerpiece of his campaign, which he considers incredibly devastating. Burbridge spoke about Biden's rally in Manassas, at which the president advocated making into federal law the Roe v. Wade abortion ruling that was recently overturned by the Supreme Court. Both Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris condemned Republican efforts to protect the unborn while speaking in front of a large banner reading "Restore Roe." Biden reportedly criticized former President Donald Trump for appointing Supreme Court justices which overturned Roe v. Wade, telling his audience that Trump believes he will not suffer electoral blockback for doing such a thing. Monsignor Burbridge released the following statement after Biden's rally. President Biden has made abortion the centerpiece of his campaign. At a rally in Manassas, he advocated for the codification of Roe v. Wade into law. It is incredibly devastating to learn that President Biden put choice before his sacred duty to protect life. President Biden's rally took place just 4 miles from the Mother of Mercy Free Medical Clinic in Manassas, where Catholic Charities of the Diocese of Arlington provide free prenatal care to needy pregnant women and their unborn children. In the year following the Debus v. Jackson ruling, the Diocese of Arlington delivered $877,000 in free medical care to more than 1,000 women. Going further, the diocese also provided rent and utility assistance, nearly 400,000 diapers, and 4,000 cans of formula to families in need. Despite what this administration claims, taking the life of an innocent child is never a choice. Women facing unexpected or difficult pregnancies deserve help that affirms and supports life, not destroys it. Abortion remains the #1 civil rights issue of our time, and yet just yesterday, the Biden administration announced new effort to increase access to medically unsafe prescription abortion pills. This is clearly not about women's health. The Diocese of Arlington and the entire pro-life movement will remain steadfast in ensuring that parents facing unexpected or difficult pregnancies have the support they need to choose life for their unborn children, Bishop Burbridge said in closing.
A study carried out in the German Lutheran Church has found that there were many more cases of child abuse than there had been officially reported.
An independent team of researchers has presented in Hanover the results of the first study on sexual violence against minors in Lutheran Church in Germany. The members are much higher than expected. This result serves to dismantle the thesis of the supporters of the German synodical path. According to the first nationwide study on sexual violence against the minors in Lutheran Church in Germany and the services associated with it, an estimated 9,355 children and adolescents have been victims of sexual abuse in Germany since 1946. The number of defendants is 3,497. About 1/3 of them are clergy, that is, pastors or vicars. The defendants are almost exclusively male, 99.6%. About 3/4 of them married at the same time and of first offense. The average age of the defendants were 36 years. Of the victims, 64.7% were men and 35.3% were women. The experts explained in the extensive study that the official reported number is 1,259 accused and 2,174 affected, but that these figures by no means reflect the totality of abuses in the regional churches. For this reason, and because of the lack of available files, They have made a projection, and this has resulted in a total estimate of 3,497 accused, 1,402 of them clergymen, and 9,355 affected. This study also has consequences in the Catholic sphere. All those who argue that it is necessary to reform the Church on the basis of sexual abuses committed by the male and celibate clergy are exposed, given that the liturgical liturgy is almost entirely made up of married people.
Our editorial this week is dedicated to commenting on the fact that more than half the world's deaths are due to abortion.
This week, the annual pro-life rally took place in Washington, D.C. It's probably the most important event in the world in the fight against abortion, not only because of the number of people it gathers, but also because of the symbolic place where they make. The march ends in front of the U.S. Capitol. The weather this year has not favored the attendance. It was extremely cold, snowy. The situation was really complicated. Less people went than other years. Even so, more than 50,000 people have gathered. It is a proof, a concrete manifestation of the effort that is being made in this country in favor of life and against abortion. It is true that there are states such as Texas, for example, where abortion is partially suspended, with some exceptions very few. But it is also true that there are others that have introduced abortion in their constitutions, considering it right. The fight in the United States is fierce, but the defenders of life did not give up. A recent survey stated that 66% of Americans want abortion to be reduced to the first 3 months of the fetus's life, and more than 80% want more financial support for pro-life centers for the care of pregnant women. 2/3 are also in favor of the right of conscience, of conscientious objection by doctors and health professionals. All positive data, I insist, without forgetting the negative data that still exists. The United States is not the only country where abortion is a source of controversy, of confrontation with success and defense for the defenders of life. But one of the recent success has been in Peru, where its Congress has passed a law by which the unborn children from the moment of conception is already considered a human being, subject to all the rights of other human beings, and considered as someone independent of the mother, even though the mother is the carrying woman, the one who carries the child for 9 months inside her. This is an important success, but I insist there are advances, there are victories, and there are also many defeats. Also, a few days ago, last week, some data on the extent of abortion in the world became known. In 2022, 72 million people died because of abortion. 72 million human beings. That represents more than 50% of the deaths of human beings in the world. It is estimated that there were in 2022, with COVID and with everything you want, 140 million deaths of human beings. Of those, 140,72 were due to abortion, and that does not include those who die because of abortion pill, the so-called morning after pill that it is taken to prevent pregnancy if it has occurred. The number of deaths from cancer, including deaths linked to tobacco, was 16 million. The number of deaths from AIDS was 2 million. 72 million died from abortion. The world is shocked by the executing of a murder in Alabama, the legal execution. I am against the death penalty. I think it's something that should be eliminated, but the world is hypocritically shocked by the execution of a murder, and it is not shocked by the execution of 72 million innocent human beings. This is absolutely hypocrisy. It is that adding up all the causes of death in the world, traffic, accidents, suicides, diseases, terrible wars, it is less than the deaths caused by abortion. What is the church doing in the face of this butchery of human beings? It must be said that, starting with the Pope, the Catholic Church is against abortion. It is true that there are exceptions, cardinals, bishops, theologians, priests, who justify abortion in some cases, perhaps without realizing that this is a strategy used by the abortionists to open the door a little. And since the door is already open, the question is then to widen the opening little by little. It must be said that the Church is against abortion from the Pope on, starting with the Pope, and it has always been like that. But this, which is true, hides another very important part of the truth, because the basic question, the essential question, is not how many abortions there are, or what business is behind abortion. For example, the sale of the fragments of that little murdered body, especially when the abortion is performed by the decapitation technique. The baby's head comes out and the liver is stopped at that moment. The baby is killed with an awl, then, already dead, is taken out and cut up as if were a cow to be sold for transplants. This is horrifying. This is scary out, and it is the big business of many of the abortion multinationals. All this is true, horrendous. All this, everything, the church rejects it. But why? Why 72 million women have chosen in the year 2022 to kill their children? Most of them, certainly, many of them, live in countries where it is no longer a social scourge, a social stigma to be a single mother, and they live in a country where there are maternity benefits. So why this carnage provoked in these most cases, at least, with the consent and the desire of the mother? Why? I am sure that the vast majority of these mothers would have preferred not to abort their children, for sure, and yet they have decided to do so. Why? Until we answer this question, we will not get the root of the problem. From my point of view, the answer is only one: for convenience. The human being that comes when it is not wanted, it seemed as a problem, whether it is a baby that is going to be born in the bosom of a constituted family, or one that is not, whether it is the first one or whether it already has another semblance, and whether it comes healthy or sick. When the child is unwanted, it is a problem, and as society has educated us to solve problems by eliminating them at any price. When the human being that comes along presents a problem, what we have to do is to put an end to that problem, even at the price of killing an innocent person, who is also one of your children. This is very hard, but it is the pure reality. In front of the problem, we have not been educated to face them, to fight, to solve them. We have been educated to eliminate them by fleeing, including the terrible moment of the death of another person who is considered a problem, even if that person is your own child. And that is where the church has a very serious responsibility. Jesus Christ taught us that whoever wanted to be his disciple had to carry his own cross every day. He taught us that we must try to avoid suffering. He did it by healing the sick, for example. But that could not be done at any price. He taught us that the law that must govern our life is that of love, but love in imitation of him who died on a cross, not to love of surrendering to instinct, because that is not Christian love, and I doubt that it can be a considered love, although some give it that name. Jesus Christ has taught us to fight and to rise and fall. He has assured us of his strength. He has assured us of his grace. He has taught us to strengthen our wavering knees. What is the church doing today? For example, the great debate that we have been having for several years within that has had one of its schisms now with the recent declaration of fiducia supplicans. The great basic debate is to suppress the concept of sin and sexual relations outside marriage of any kind, homosexual or heterosexual. To suppress the concept of sin, that is, to eliminate the already fragile and lukewarm barrier the conscience offers. To surrender completely to instinct. Everything that your body asks you is good, and it is not sin. And your body asks you, if you feel so, you have the right to do it without your conscience bothering you. This is one of the more steps in the destruction of the human being. As someone capable of fighting, do not convert. You do not have to convert. Why preach conversion? What you have to do is to suppress the concept of sin, so you don't have to repent of anything. You don't have to struggle. You don't have to strive. You don't have to get up every time you fall. The church, in this demoralization in which she has been involved for years, is making men weaker and weaker, more and more given over to the dominion of his passions, to the rule of his senses. This fragile man is not only unable to cope with sins against the sixth commandment, but when other problems arrive among them, the fruit of a sexual action, sometimes even many times contrary to the sixth commandment, when these problems arrive, that is, a child that comes unwanted without being wanted, and that it is a problem, that weak man, the fragile man, subjected to passion, subjected to his instincts, that man decides, or that woman decides, the only way, which is death, to kill him, to kill even the innocent, to kill even the offspring. A church that no longer teaches the value of effort, that no longer teaches the value of sacrifice, that no longer teaches that it is indeed necessary to try to solve problems. If you have a disease, you have to try to cure yourself, but not at any price, and certainly not at the price of committing an injustice. The greatest of injustice, such as killing a person who is not to blame for anything. A church that does not teach the value of effort and the value of sacrifice, a church that does not teach the value of conversion, a church that does not teach that to follow Jesus is the way of love. You have to carry your daily cross. A church that does not teach this, even if it is theoretical, against abortion in reality is destroying the capacity of the human being to face problems. It is as if a person's organism and bacterium enters that it is deadly, bacterium that can kill him, and nothing is done, to favor the bacterium, but something is done to kill the white blood cells, which is the natural defense of the organism against the bacterium. You are not favoring the bacterium. You are not supporting abortion, but you are killing the white blood cells that can kill the bacteria. You are destroying the ability of the human being to fight, to strive, to sacrifice, to not give into what it's caused simply because it costs. We are not going to collaborate in this fight in favor of life until we begin to preach the message of Jesus Christ in its entirety. Whoever wants to be my disciple, let him carry his daily cross and follow me. And meanwhile, as long as we are protecting the weak men, the lazy men, the men and women, as long as we are promoting this, as long as we are saying this, that whatever you like, whatever your body asks you to do, you can do it because it is not a sin. We still be being accomplices, even the indirectly, of the greatest butchery of men beings that has ever taken place in history. Let us not forget it.
We will continue to keep you informed of what is happening in the church. In the meantime, you can check our website at www.magnificat.tv. Until next week, God willing.